All right, in our second lesson, we're going to talk a little bit about slope formula. This is a lot of review from algebra, and we are going to um, basically answer some questions. We're going to get the slope from two different points on a graph. They're not going to give us the graph. We're just going to look at the 2 points that they give us. They're going to be two ordered pairs, and we're going to write those down. We're going to do a formula, and this is a formula you need to memorize for the final of this class. So the formula is real simple. We're still going to use our little m for slope, and we're going to do y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. And we use that in algebra, and we're going to use that a lot here in this class. So we have, basic two-order pairs here, and we're going to find the slope. I'm going to do the odd numbers. You get to do all the even numbers. So we're going to start with number 1 over here, and we're going to do m equals One of my key things that I would like everybody to do is to label your two-order pairs. I'm going to label this x1, y1, x2, y2. Please remember that ordered pairs are an x and a y, just like that. So I'm going to take the y2, which is my 3, and I'm going to subtract my y1, which is 1. And then on the bottom, I'm going to take my x2, which is 4, and I'm going to minus my x1, which is 1. And you should just simplify this on the top. 3 minus 1 is 2, and 4 minus 1 is 3. And that fraction is simplified all the way. All right, so now we're going to try number 3, which has some negative signs in it. And that's going to make us do things a little differently. So I'm going to label once again. We're going to have x1, y1, x2, y2. Okay, so we're going to use our little m, that stands for slope, and we're going to take our y2 right here, which is negative 5, and we're going to subtract our 5 from that. And then we're going to take our x2 and subtract x1. Notice x1 is a negative number, so we need to put that in parentheses. And that makes it easier for us to put in our calculators. So if you put in your calculator negative 5 minus 5, you're going to get negative 10. Okay? And then if you get negative 8 minus a negative 4, that's really just negative 8 plus 4. So that's going to give us a negative 4. Well, we should know by now that a negative divided by a negative is going to give us a positive answer. And we're going to reduce 10 over 4 by 2. So we're going to divide the top by 2, divide the bottom by 2. And if you have a TI-83 or 84, it'll reduce it for you anyway. But if not, then you can just do it like this. So 10 divided by 2 is 5, and 4 divided by 2 is 2. And there is our slope. And I'll be looking for you to do all the even numbers. That'll be my like a homework check type of thing. So be ready to do those. All right. Now we're going to look at number 5. 5, all positive numbers. So maybe I'll let you guys do number 5 because that's a little bit easier. I'll do number 6 for you because it has negative numbers in it. So, so I'll change up my way of looking at it here shortly. So number 6, got to be done. So we'll do it right here together. So I'm going to call this x1, y1, x2, y2. Little m stands for slope. So we're going to take our y2 over here and subtract our y1, which is 8. Then we're going to take our x2, which is negative 7, and minus our negative 7. Notice how I put it in parentheses. So 5 minus 8 in your calculator is going to give you negative 3. And if you look at this, it's going to be negative 7 plus 7. And that is actually going to give us a 0. What do we do with that? We'll put it in your calculator, see what it says. It's going to end up telling you that it's an error, and anything that's an error is going to be undefined. Okay? Now let's come down here to number 7. And we're going to label x1, y1, x2, y2. Do it every time you have ordered pairs, especially if you have 2 of them. So we're going to look at this. We're going to have little m stands for slope. We're going to take y2 minus y1. And then we're going to take x2 minus a -1, which is our x1. 3 minus 9, you put it in your calculator, you get -6. Down here, this is really going to be 2 plus 1 because we're going to do keep flip change. Or if you have just put it in the calculator just like I've written it, 2 minus the -1, you're going to be fine. I would not put the whole thing 3 minus 9 divided by 2 minus a -1 because your calculator is going to read it incorrectly. So do the top, do the bottom, and then let's look at what it is. So this is going to be 3. Okay, it looks like we can say -6 divided by 3 is simply -2. And that is our slope for that one. All right, now I'm going to do number 9. You'll be responsible for number 10, and we'll go from there. So we're going to call this x1, y1, x2, y2. Little m stands for slope. So we're going to do our 5 minus y1, which is 6. Now we're going to do x2 minus 5. And 5 minus 6 is -1. 6 minus 5 is +1. Simplify this and it's going to be -1 as your slope. I will be looking to see you do the ones that I didn't do. But let's move on to another subject here. It's called standard form. And standard form, we're going to see some, and we're going to have to change it to slope-intercept form. And slope-intercept form is simply y equals mx plus b. And the reason we do that is so we can find slope and the y-intercept. Okay? But standard form, let's write that up here. It is ax plus by equals c. A, B, and C stand for numbers. That's all they stand for. Like in this first problem down here, A is 2, Y is 1, and C is 3. That's all it is. They just stand for numbers. Okay? So we're simply going to solve for Y. In other words, we're going to take a standard form, which is 2x plus 1y equals 3, and we're going to change it to y equals mx plus b. Notice in our y equals mx plus b, the y is all by itself, just there by itself. So we need to get the y by itself. We need to do some work here, and we're going to solve a few of these, and then I'll let you do a few on your own. So I really need to get rid of that 2x first. And how do I get rid of 2x from both sides? Is I subtract 2x from both sides. Just like that. I'm going to put a line under here because it separates each of my steps. I see that my 2x's, they go away on the left side. And all I have left is a positive 1y, which I can write just by writing y. But see these two on the right side here, they do not belong together. They're not like terms. So we cannot write them together. We cannot say 3 minus 2. It doesn't work that way. We're just going to keep them separate, just like that. And that is a positive 3, and that's the reason I put plus 3. All right, let's try number 2 here. It looks a little more difficult. Maybe we have an extra step or something. But my first step is I really want to get that x away from this left side so that I can continue to get y by itself. So I'm going to subtract 4x from both sides. I put a line under it so I can separate each step. On the left side, I finally got rid of my 4x to get it out of there. And notice I have a positive 5y left. So on the right side, negative 30 is a constant, negative 4x is a variable expression. They're not like terms, so I can't combine them together. So I'm going to write it negative 4x minus 30. And the reason I write it with the x expression first and then the constant at the end is because it looks really close to my y equals mx plus b. But y is not by itself yet. It has a 5 in front of it, and they are connected with multiplication. So the only way we can undo that multiplication is to divide. And if I divide on that left side, I have to divide everything on the right side. And you'll see that I'm dividing each individual thing by 5. So my y is now by itself. My new slope is negative 4 over 5. I'm just going to put the x out to the right. And then my y-intercept is going to be negative 30 divided by 5, which is negative 6. All right, I'm going to do 3, 5. I'll expect you to do 4 and 6, and I'll most likely do 7, and you can do 8. So let's look and see what we have here. Let me change a little color here. And we're going to, once again, get rid of that x. Well, what kind of x is it? It's a 1x. So I'm going to subtract 1x from both sides. Okay? That does get rid of my x on the left side. But what do I have left over here? I have a negative 3y, and that is one of the biggest mistakes between all algebra, geometry, and algebra 2 students is they forget to bring down the negative with that 3. So on the right side, those guys are not like terms, so we're going to get and just write them down just like that. There's no reason to do 12 minus 1 because they don't belong together. And now we need to get rid of the stuff connected to the y, and there's a negative 3 multiplied by y. So we're going to divide everything by negative 3. That does get rid of the negative 3 on the left side, and y is now by itself. Now let's look at our slope. Our slope is negative 1 divided by negative 3, which actually makes it positive 1 over 3. And the x just kind of hangs out next to it. And then we have our y-intercept is 12 divided by negative 3, which is a negative 4. All right, now let's do bright green. That'll be fun, right? So, once again, I said you need to do 4 and 6 and 8 on your own, and I'll do a notebook check on that later on. So, we're going to get rid of our 4x by subtracting 4x from both sides. And that's going to clear that up pretty quickly. But please, please see that we have a negative 1y there. You can even put a 1 up in front of there. And then it's going to be negative 4x plus 0. Do I even have to put plus 0? It's not even important for me to put in there because it doesn't change anything. So I'm just not even going to put the plus 0 in there. It tells us that our y-intercept is going to be 0, though, which means it goes to the origin of the problem. But really, we need to get rid of that negative 1 in front of the y. And it was connected with multiplication, so I'm going to have to get rid of it with division. So that finally, on the left side, we get y by itself. And on the right side, we just do negative 4 divided by negative 1, which is a positive 4. And just put that x out to the side. So our slope is 4. Our y-intercept is 0, which means it goes to the origin, which is 0, 0 on the graph. And our last problem that I'm going to do for you, I will see you do the other ones on your own, is we're going to do number 7, and we're going to get rid of that negative 6x by adding, we're going to do the opposite, adding 6x to both sides, which gets rid of that negative 6x and makes us have a positive 4y left on the left side. And these two on the right, they do not go together because they're not like terms. We just write them down. We'll have our x first and then our constant last, and it'll make your life easier in the long run. We just need to get rid of this 4 that's hanging out in front of this y right here. And we do that by doing the opposite operation, which they were connected with multiplication. Now they're going to be undone by division. And now y is finally by itself. But let's see what our slope will be. Slope is going to be 6 over 4. And we can reduce that by doing divided by 2, and it's going to be 3 over 2. Just put the x out beside it, because the 3/2 is our slope. The x is a number that we plug into the equation. And then we're going to do 20 divided by 4, which is 5. So our y-intercept would be 5. And that's what I'm expecting you to be able to do with the ones that we didn't do, which is 4, 6, and 8.